What's up guys, and welcome back to the channel. In today's video I'm going to be sharing 5 dividend stocks that you can invest in 2021 from relatively well-known companies that pay both good and consistent dividends over a long period of time so that you can start building some passive income. But before we do that, if this is the first time that we have met, my name is Christos Fellas and I have been an investor for just over 4 years now, and on this YouTube channel I talk all the different things about making, managing and helping your money go further. So if that's something that interests you, then consider subscribing below. But having said all that, let's jump straight into it. All right, so first up is JP Morgan, and this is a very solid company to invest in. It's got a dividend yield of 2.19%. Not going to be the highest yield in the list that I'm going to be showing you, but nonetheless an absolutely massive company. If you didn't know what it was, if you're in America, I'm sure you obviously do, but if you're from another country watching this video, it is the largest bank in America with assets of 3.03 trillion. Now, one thing that I wanted to mention in this video, which I thought was really good about this stock, is its actual payout ratio of its dividends. As you can see here, it currently has a payout ratio of 28.57%, which is actually 10% down from previous year. I'm thinking possibly they took some money back to recuperate the losses, possibly through COVID or something like that. But 28.57% is a really good payout ratio. It's not the highest amount. Sometimes you actually don't want this number to be that high because then you know they are not putting money back into their business to potentially grow it. So seeing this number is a really nice balance between giving money back to their investors and then also investing money to grow their business. But nonetheless, JP Morgan, a really solid dividend company to invest in. Next up we have Walgreens. Now, if you didn't know what Walgreens is, it is basically a pharmacy chain across the United States. If you're watching it from the UK, very similar to Boots. In fact, as you can see by its name, it also owns Boots as well. So two companies in one you're investing into here. As you can see, it's actually a holding company, the stock is. This one, it has a dividend yield of 3.55%, so a little bit higher than JP Morgan. But what I really like about this company is its performance over the past few years. And as you can see from this chart here, the blue line is the S&P 500 average with dividends included, and in the red we have Walgreens with dividends. And as you can see, over a long period of time of about 30 years, it has completely outperformed the S&P 500 when you are counting dividend payments. Next up we have Kraft Heinz. Just a quick thing actually guys, I know I'm flying through this video, and normally in the previous videos that I make on stocks that I'm buying, I normally go into the stocks a lot deeper in terms of fundamental analysis, but I really wanted to stick to the dividend side of things of each stock here, which is why I'm very much focusing on the like I said, the dividend side. But nonetheless, if you wanted me to go deeper on any of these stocks, just pop me a comment down below and I'll be more than happy to create an individual video on them. But yeah, like I said, Kraft Heinz Co, we of course know what this is. It's obviously famous for tomato sauce. It's just a food company. One thing to note about this company, it is owned heavily by the GOAT himself, Mr. Warren Buffett. Of course, he owns Berkshire Hathaway and they own 26% of Kraft Heinz, which is obviously quite a large amount, but it's not always been the typical love story between Buffett and this stock. He actually, I think he was very disappointed with this stock when he first invested into it, but in a recent shareholder meeting at Berkshire Hathaway, he actually spoke some really kind words on this stock. So it was really good to hear that from an investor point of view going forward. One thing I didn't actually mention is the dividend yield for this one. So just going back, it has a 3.67% yield, which is very good in the grand scheme of things, much higher than the S&P 500 average. But one thing I want to say about this stock is that I wouldn't invest into the stock hoping for massive amounts of growth in terms of the actual stock price. This to me is very much a defensive style stock, and I wouldn't really see too much. There's definitely other companies that you can invest in if you wanted to see hyper growth or anything like that. Just switching over here to the financials again, as you can see, the PE ratio is 103.53, which is very high, which obviously means this stock could be potentially overvalued at the minute. But once again, if you're holding this for the long term with very much a dividend play in mind, I still think this is a very good stock to go out and buy. Next up we have a company that I'm personally invested quite heavily into, which is obviously CocaCola. Once again, this stock is owned quite heavily by Warren Buffett. I believe it's his largest holding besides Apple maybe. maybe. I'll have to just double check that, but this is one that he's held for a very, very long time, and rightly so. It's probably one of the most successful companies in America, and what I love about the dividend structure of this company, oh yeah, by the way, a dividend yield of 3.04%, so not quite as good as Kraft Heinz, but still a very, very good percentage in my personal opinion. But like I said, what I love about this company is that, as you can see, what it says here is that the board of directors from the Coca-Cola company have just announced in February 2021 the 59th consecutive annual dividend increase to its investors. Now, that is 59 years in a row that this company has increased its dividend payments to its investors. Now, as an investor, investing into this company solely for kind of dividend purposes and value purposes, that is a very encouraging sign and an absolutely amazing track record. And it only goes to show when you take a look at this chart here, where we once again compare it with the S&P 500's performance with dividends. Coca-Cola is the red line, S&P 500 is the blue line, and as you can see, it absolutely crushes the performance of the S&P 500 over the last 30 years. However, one thing to mention, just like Kraft Heinz, once again, if you are investing in this company looking for the stock price to go up, it's probably not going to be your best bet. As you can see from this chart here, this is the price change percentage over the last 10 or so years, comparing once again Coca-Cola with the S&P 500, this time without dividends. This is just simply the stock price. As you can see, over the last 10 or so years, the S&P 500 has gone up 215%, whereas Coca-Cola has gone up 70%. But obviously, we're not including dividend payments or anything like that, and that is what this video is for. So if you're investing it for dividends, this is an absolutely brilliant stock to be invested in. Next up, we have Verizon, which has a dividend yield of 4.44%, which I believe is going to be the highest yield in the list that I'm showing you today. There are much higher companies with higher dividend yields and things like that, but there is something to think about. When a company actually offers such a high dividend yield, that doesn't necessarily mean it's a great company to invest in. Sometimes they actually do that to entice investors when the financials of the companies might not be actually that great. So that is why you're probably seeing a lot of well-known and established companies in this list, because they are solid companies to invest in anyway, and the dividend is obviously going to be a bonus of that. One thing I actually found really impressive about this company when just taking a look at it and doing my research is that they reached all of their strategic priorities in 2020 despite having obviously the pandemic and things like that. As you can see, this is just a list of all the different things that they have managed to achieve, with a big chunk of that really being working on their 5G, because that, I believe, is going to really help push this company forward. But this is a really good company to invest in if you want a safe investment, I would say, with really good dividend paying options. One other thing that I really like about this company, being the big company that it is, it's obviously backed quite heavily by Wall Street. As you can see, 66.87% of its holdings is by large institutions, hedge funds and things like that. So that's very, very confidence boosting for me if I'm investing into a company that they are very much with that as well. I know they won't be out to get me on it, so that's just something really interesting to think about. But nonetheless, a really, really good company. Like I said, there's not really much for me to say on this company. One thing I have to say is I'm not currently invested into this company, but this has always been one that has popped up to me when I have been researching dividend stocks, and it's always been one that's kind of popped out to me, but I've never really made an investment in it. But maybe that's something that I will do in the future. But once again, just like pretty much all of the other investments in this list, maybe apart from Walgreens, I wouldn't class this one as a growth stock for the future. There's definitely many other options. Like I said, I've got plenty of videos talking about different growth stocks that I own that I would go for rather than this one. But from a dividend point of view, I think this one is a really good bet and a good one to hold for the long term. So that is Verizon. And that concludes my 5 dividend paying stocks that I think are great investments in 2021 and beyond. But like I always say, guys, this is just simply my own own personal opinion. I personally invest into some of these companies. Some of them I am not invested into, but I have very much been impressed based by the research that I've done. One thing I always say to people is always do your own research when it comes to making your own investments. But having said all that, if maybe you do invest in any of these companies that I've mentioned in this video, make sure you let me know in the comments section down below. Other than that, like the video if you found some value from it, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and I shall catch you guys in the next one.